For whatever reason, everyone thought the Khora and Lycath hunt combination for one whip shield gating would be a thing of the past come Abyss of Dagger. And not only were they wrong, but it's gotten even better, taking advantage of some slightly older tech to give everyone red crits on your whip, no Riven needed, and prime all enemies around you with 12 different status effects with the new companion buffs. Yeah, Khora didn't get worse, guys. She got even better. Timestamps are in the description as we have quite a lot to discuss right now, starting off with her main DPS ability, Whipclaw. Whipclaw is a pseudo-exalted melee, differing from traditional exalted melees see Excalibur and Baruch, as while it does possess its own stats, you cannot mod them directly. Instead, your whip will inherit the mods equipped on your melee weapon. This is quite important, as it means the stats of your melee weapon, commonly referred to as a stat stick, do not matter. Whether it be the Nikana Prime or the MK1 Firax, your results will be the exact same, as the mods affect Whipclaw's own invisible innate stats, those being a 25% crit chance, 20% status chance, and a 2x crit damage, with its base 300 damage being split evenly between the 3 IPS stats. Whipclaw's damage scales off of a few other things besides mods though, that being ability strength and namely the melee combo counter. Stacking combo is incredibly important for Whipclaw, providing a 0.25x increase in damage per combo count increase, capping off at a 3.75x multiplier when at 12x combo. And just to cap this off, there are a few mods that don't affect Whipclaw in any way, those being faction damage, status duration, range, and attack speed mods alongside shattering impact, condition overload, and a few other conditionals. For the ability itself, casting will have her crack her whip towards your reticle with both its range and subsequent explosion scaling off the range stat. All of that is largely irrelevant if we don't have a good stat stick to pair Whipclaw with, and for that I present you two options allowing anybody, yes anybody, to hit all red crits with no Riven. The Ceramic Dagger and Magistar Incarnon's 4th evolution perks provide them with flat melee crit chance that extends over to pseudo-exalts like Khora's whip. In Ceramic Dagger's case, this is an additive 30% crit chance on top of Whipclaw's base 25%, bringing it to a base 55% CC, which is incredibly high. This means that when paired with Blood Rush and Gladiator Might, providing a total 550% multiplicative crit chance, we achieve 357.5% CC, well above the threshold for only red crits, and giving us a high chance to hit tier 4 red crits. Magistar Incarnon, on the other hand, only provides 16% base crit chance, but also gives an additional 1x to our crit multiplier, making it the superior option here, as you can still achieve red crits, though you do need to use Sacrificial Steel for another 220% crit chance, bringing our equation to 770% of 41 plus 41, landing us a very similar value at 356.7% CC, with the added multiplier of course. I only have the Ceramic Dagger Incarnon though, so it will be the basis of our build, though they do remain quite similar. Prime Pressure Point is the best source of base damage as Condition Overload does not work. If only it did, remember back to the intro. Both crit stats come from Blood Rush, Gladiator Might, and Organ Shatter, while for our first build we are going Corrosive for raw damage, being built from Primed Fever Strike and Shocking Touch. Corrosive is the superior element for 99% of content you'll experience, as it gives Whipclaw some massive benefits against armor. As other damage types effective against armor gain, Corrosive's modifier towards it functions in two ways. It both increases the damage dealt to the target while ignoring a percentage of the enemy's armor at the same time. For base Steel Path, this means pretty much every enemy will get one-tapped by your whip, dying immediately, even acolytes. If looking to bring Khora much deeper though, say level cap or endurance runs, then a slash focus setup is superior, where you would just swap out these two corrosive mods for Carnus Mandible and Buzzkill. This setup will scale far longer in Steel Path, though the 1 second delay on slash ticks for enemies is kind of annoying, but relative to the corrosive setup, it demolishes Eximus units, something the previous needs assistance from armor strip or status effects to do easily. Besides those two mods, the builds remain very similar. For Ceramic on the corrosive build, the last two slots can be filled with Spoiled Strike and either Weeping Wounds or Sacrificial Steel. I recommend the latter, as the corrosive focus setup does not rely on status procs to deal damage, and Sacrificial Steel increases our already high crit chance to 478.5%, while Spoiled Strike adds another 100% base damage. Nothing to complain about there. If you do have a Riven for ceramic though, it can replace either of those two mods, with the best stats being critical chance and damage alongside base damage. The slash setup on the other hand does need weeping wounds, as in combination with Karnus Mandible increases whip's status chance to 126%, almost guaranteeing a slash proc with the weighting increase from Mandible and Buzzkill. At 12x combo with just these mods and no other buffs, our damage is okay against these Steel Path Gunners, but there's still a lot more we can do to buff Whipclaw. The most basic being to activate Ceramic Dagger's Incarnon form, providing 100% more base damage to Whipclaw. In a similar vein, Arcane Fury also provides more base damage at 180% with a 60% chance to proc on crit, which we are always doing. Lastly, Khora's Augment, accumulating Whipclaw, is crucial towards maxing out our whip damage. Accumulating provides a stacking 35% damage buff to whip for hitting 3 enemies in one cast, capping off at 350% after 10 successful hits. Unique about this damage though, is that it functions identically to the bonus provided by ability strength, meaning that strength is now a dump stat on Khora, as none of her other abilities are meaningfully affected by it. With those 3 factors in mind, stacking accumulating Whipclaw results in utter destruction that only gets better with the rest of her kit. Ensnare is both the best grouping in the game and a damage increase for Whipclaw. Ensnaring an enemy will bind them in chains momentarily before latching onto all enemies within its range and pulling them into the originally chained target. Ensnare does not require line of sight, going through obstacles, and completely disables all chained enemies. With Whipclaw, not only do you get a free damage double against chained enemies, but you can also re-proc Ensnare's pull if the main target survives with the initial hit, but that barely happens because of the aforementioned double damage on top of the already one-shot. And because it couldn't get more broken, Ensnare also works on acolytes, rendering them too completely immobile and making one-shots against them just that much easier. Khora's base 3 sucks and is our helmet slot for what we will discuss after her 4th, Strangledome. Strangledome creates a dome around Khora, scaling off range that will drag enemies into one of its 26 vertices, ragdolling them, dealing IPS damage, and increasing their threat level alongside adding a 2x damage multiplier from all weapons and abilities. That doesn't work on Whipclaw, rather unfortunately. The added threat level though means that captured enemies become susceptible to friendly fire and cause their previous allies to now target them over you, meaning that standing within your dome is a solid form of survivability, though you'll find she really doesn't need it with our helmet ability for today. You can have 2 of these domes active at once, which is quite important for this ability's main use, additional loot. Pilfering Strangledome grants held enemies a 65% chance to drop additional loot, turning Khora from a monster of a damage frame to also one of the best loot frames in the game. With all that being said, we can move on to our helmet ability for today, Lycath's Hunt, and why it provides Khora with practical immortality. Playing Khora, pretty much all you do is spam your whip, which would make it a great candidate for shield gating, but due to the frequency of casts and necessity to lower your efficiency, spamming a 40 energy ability will have you empty in seconds and lead to your death. Lycath's Hunt solves this by having all melee kills, yes Whipclaw included, possess a 50% chance to drop a health orb on kill, with health orbs being worth 50 and Equilibrium converting health orbs into energy at 110%. This is a constant source of energy so strong you don't need Arcane Energize or any sort of efficiency, which is good, because with Blind Rage equipped, our whip costs 38.75 energy per cast, pair that with Brief Respite and 3 Augur mods for a total 270% energy to shield conversion rate, and we generate 104 shields per cast of whip. While at base shields, this is far from enough to gate in one cast on Khora, though with the new Catalyzing shields mod, it will reduce them down to 93 and set our shield gate duration to 1.33 seconds, essentially the old shield gate, and now allow every cast of whip to give us said full duration. Khora is now an insane DPS frame, a loot frame, and actually invincible. Pretty damn good if you ask me. Lycath's secondary effect, where killing enemies with 5 or more status effects on them extends its duration to a cap of 60 seconds, leads us into some more massive buffs Khora got with Abyss of Dagger. Originally, I ran her with the Sado to prime enemies so we could extend its duration infinitely, but with the changes to companions, and specifically Diriga, we can outsource this entirely in a better way than we ever could previously. Diriga's unique precept mod, our Coil, causes it to zap 7 enemies within 10 meters for electric damage. Alone, this is quite bad and never something I would recommend. But if combined with 2 of the new bond mods, we can make these explosions deal far more than just electricity, covering the entire elemental chart. Manifold Bond has companion precepts like our Coil add the elements on your companion's weapon to the ability itself. Disregarding the other bond mod, with just viral and radiation modded onto our weapon, we meet the 5 status effect threshold for extending Lycath's hunt duration, while viral provides a massive damage multiplier and radiation is good crowd control. With the Momentous bond mod though, killing 𝘔𝘰𝘴𝘵 units will add any of the 4 base or 6 combined elementals onto our weapon, which Manifold Bond will take into account and cause our Coil to proc all of those on everything in the area by itself. Coil also normally possesses a short cooldown, yet with Manifold Bond, killing any enemies with 3 or more status effects applied will reduce ability cooldowns by 3 seconds, and with this amount of priming going on, it's always shooting this out. Further mods on Diriga are not necessary, but are nice to have for a multitude of reasons. Primed Animal Instinct for enemy and loot radar, and Synth Fiber to pair with our other 2 health and armor mods to give it a level of survivability alongside its natural shield gate. Guardian gives us a free shield gate for those fringe cases where they break during an ability cast like Ensnare or Strangledome, and its 30-second duration is affected by Manifold, meaning it too will have almost no cooldown. These last slots are pre-polarized for more precept mods, but I recommend against filling them as it will mess with our Coil procs. On the weapon, only viral and rad are needed, though status duration mods help. With all that being said though, we're not done with companions on Khora. As a passive, she has her own kyaiiyt, Venari, permanently at her side. While Venari doesn't have any kind of crazy builds like Diriga, it is useful as a stat stick for another bond mod, Tenacious Bond. Tenacious's secondary effects add a flat 1.2x crit damage to all your weapons after mods, if your companion's crit chance is over 50%, easily achievable with the bite mod. And that's kinda it, just a free crit damage bonus for doing literally nothing, but I'll never complain about more free damage. Besides that, we use Fetch here instead of Vacuum on Diriga as its range is slightly higher, and Animal Instincts buffs will stack with each other for some memey amounts of enemy and loot radar. Keeping Venari alive is also quite easy through the newly changed Pack Leader mod. There's quite literally nothing else actually useful here, so fill these slots in with whatever, it doesn't matter. That rounds off our companion portion for the video, so now we can get to the Khora build itself. Blind Rage is needed for the negative efficiency, so we can shield gate through Catalyzing shields with Brief Respite, Augur Reach, and 2 more Augurs on any secondary. Mine is the Epitaph, which can be used to quickly prime enemies to reduce cooldowns for Diriga in the rare chance you actually need to. 200% range caps off Whipclaw's explosion to 10 meters, so we can achieve that through Overextended. And remember, its negative strength is not a big deal here, as accumulating Whipclaw provides 350% more damage in the same way strength would. Equilibrium is necessary to pick up the health orbs dropped from Lycath, while Prime Continuity increases the duration on Strangledome to 31 seconds, and the propagation delay on Ensnare down from 0.5 to 0.32 seconds. Prime Sure-Footed or Handspring in the Exilus, and that completes our mods, with our Arcanes being Fury for the 180% additional base damage, and our last slot can actually be anything you want. There is no hard recommendation here, so you could just use something like Arcane Eruption for more crowd control, even if it's unnecessary. It's up to you, to be honest. Archon shards wise, I have 2 Tau blues for energy max and 3 reds for additional melee crit damage. I recommend the blues heavily, while the crit damage is less important, just nice to have. Wow, 7 pages of absolute insanity we just covered. This may be one of the strongest builds I have ever shown on the channel, and that's saying something, because we've gotten up to some stuff in the past. If this still hasn't convinced you Khora may be one of, if not the best frame in the game, then I don't know what to tell you. This is wild. Thank you so much for watching. Your support really means it all to me. Many more thanks to all of my supporters on Patreon and YouTube. If you would like to go check them out, links are in the description, where you'll find you get my videos a whole day early before everyone else, and your name up on screen with these cool people. Thank you to Wally, Lyric, Scotty Nose, Sage, Intellectual, 3000, Erdis, and everyone else on screen, of course. I hope this video was informative and helpful, and I will see all of you guys very soon. Peace.